With more than 2 billion cups of coffee being consumed every day, coffee is a staple beverage of the global consumer. But once again, it's being reinvented, and companies like Starbucks are not driving the wagon that will return coffee to being an affordable luxury. We discuss all of that and much more on this episode of the Cocktail Investing Podcast. So, Lenore, what are you drinking there? Are you drinking what I'm drinking? You drinking some Elixir number 14?
Number 14.
Nice.
Now, Lenore, that was the sound of Lee Suffer, who is the founder and head, I believe, over at Elixir.
I like to refer to myself as the ship steerer over here.
That's fine. That's fine. You got the high priestess of global macro over there, and then you've got me with whatever I do. So that's, I'll make up some snappy title for myself as we go along. But Lee, thank you so much for joining us. And we're all sipping the Elixir, which is this wonderful beverage that your company brews, Elixir Specialty Coffee, and the tagline is "Looks like whiskey, feels like tea, made from coffee, and unlike anything you have ever tasted before." And there's all sorts of...
And it really is.
Yeah, it
really is. The first time when I saw the bottles, all right, the bottle's beautiful. Mm-hmm. It definitely gives you this kind of premium, more of an experience, like the way it's kind of along the lines of
Scotch.
I hate twist-offs on a bottle of wine. I realize they're technically superior, but part of the ceremony of a bottle of wine is undoing the cork. This bottle was like, all right, this is a different thing. This is an experience because the bottle is it's so beautiful.
Yeah,
the weight of it.
I hear you, but that tape on the top was giving me some problems.
Oh, I like the tape. It's there's something, you're breaking the seal.
Yeah, it's tamper-proof. Romantic.
Exactly. Very romantic. But then I tasted it. I was like, this is, I can see it's coffee-esque, but it tastes so different from anything I've ever tried.
It's very light. I like it.
Yeah, it's very light, but it also does have kind of that, like a great cognac sort of feel to it. That's just this, you want to savor it. Like it's not a drink it's not coffee where it's like, oh God, coffee, morning. Yeah. Right. This is something you savor.
Yeah. This is sipping, it's like that commercial for, I forget what the drug is that they show in the US where they've got the couple sitting in the tubs and they're holding hands. And they should each have a glass of Elixir in their hands.
You forget which one that is?
He watched that ad and all he took from it was there's a couple with bubbles in water holding hands. I don't know what product they're selling.
Yeah, that's right. Maybe you guys are familiar with people who might need those types of products. I'm not really sure what's going on there with you guys.
You just saw the two people.
But anyway, the point being is that it's a differentiated setting. God, I'm working with people who are down in the gutter. Sorry, listeners, you have no idea. You have no idea what was going on even before we started to tape this.
Just so that people understand that we're not laughing out of nowhere. We have been laughing for 40 minutes before we started.
Pretty much, yeah.
So sorry, cocktail investing.
I don't need to hit the gym. Already got the ab workout in.
Sorry. Yes, exactly. Sorry, but for you cocktail investing podcast listeners that want to keep the listening above board, we will try to progress. So we're sampling this elixir that I stumbled upon that I talked about in the introduction, and we wanted to have Lee on to talk about kind of what's going on in the coffee industry and talk about the differences of specialty coffees and how Elixir is kind of, in my opinion, kind of coming out of nowhere and helping really change the way people perceive coffee, consume coffee. And what I want to do is just do a little setup here, which is that, coffee, I think, has gone from something when I was a kid that was, it's in the pot, it's cheap, it's whatever.
Folgers.
Folgers, Maxwell House. My mom had Maxwell House freeze-dried coffee.
He never asks for a second cup.
No,
home.
Never. But
people who remember that commercial. You never asked for a second cup at home.
What was the other one? Fill it to the rim with brim.
With brim.
That's right. Which Lee, I don't know if you know, that was one of the first decaf coffees in the U.S. But anyway.
No, I've not heard of that.
No, believe me, there's a reason it's no longer around. So
it's about as tasty as those Folgers crystals.
Exactly.
Oh, fantastic.
Without water. Today, and these are some numbers that I pulled together. Roughly 150 million Americans drink 400 million cups of coffee a day. Okay, that's roughly 140 billion cups a year. Lenore, I think you're like 10% of that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. There's a bunch of people who don't drink coffee if that's the average. 'Cause I'm doing way more than my share.
Right. So the retail value, just to put some numbers around it again, the U.S. coffee market's about 48 billion. That's according to the National Coffee Association. And I think the average, and again, Lenore, this is average. I know you skew higher, as do I. The average number of cups of coffee a day in the U.S. is around 3, and that's up from about 2.5 cups about 10 years ago. And we've seen this whole revolution, which I partly attribute to Starbucks, kind of recreating the coffee experience in the U.S., not only just for, drip coffee, espresso drinks, but, cold brew and these other ones, these other frozen drinks or cold drinks. But now, really in the last couple of years, and Lenore, I know you do a very good job of sampling these, like at Whole Foods and things like that, as do I. There's cold brew, bullet coffee. There's a Stumptown coffee. There's a whole array of canned cold coffee beverages. So the whole industry is extremely different. And Lee, I'm curious because you voluntarily entered the competitive fray here, right?
Yes.
So you had to see something that was very different in the product you had to offer versus the mainstream. So as you were preparing to unveil Elixir on the world, what did you see as the opportunity today in what most people would say is a crowded marketplace?
Firstly, thanks for having me. I'm having a ball so far in the pre-interview, and this is just going to be a lot of fun. So I'm really glad to be here. Thank you for having me. You're both awesome. To answer your question, I came upon Elixir as an accident. I accidentally created it. But the first moment that I tasted it, I knew that this was going to be a multi-million dollar business over the span of 10 years. And I was an entrepreneur at that time. I had been an entrepreneur for about 15 years at that point, and I just knew that this was something so absolutely new that people had not even come close to in the coffee industry. And the space that I had seen that Elixir could fill was that this was a beverage that was an experience, an authentic experience for people to have if we didn't tell them how it was made. And the reason that that's the case is because everything in coffee is so transparent. Everybody knows how everything's done in coffee. And in everything that you really consume, in all food and beverages, right? I wanted to force an experience where it was going to be an authentic moment between you and your beverage.
It's funny you say that because as someone who's got, and I was thinking about this in preparation of our call, I have a drip coffee pot. I have an espresso. I have a Japanese pour over. I have a French press. And I just picked up one of those Chemex beakers.
Yep.
So I mean, to me, it's all about reverse engineering. What I have, what I like, and if I see drinks that people have made, even cocktails too. You try and kind of reverse engineer them so you can share them. So it's frustrating to me that all I can do is I have to get this bottle of tea colored coffee. And the thing is, I had to have it shipped. I couldn't just be like,
anyone.
Yeah, I couldn't go to like Pete's or Starbucks or this or that. I had to get it shipped.
And that's deliberate. We have turned away hundreds of places that have asked us if they could sell Elixir. We are the first to market. We're the Coke.
Yeah.
For lack of a better analogy. And we want to control the way the world experiences Elixir for the first time. And we want to set it aside as a special experience you get to have for yourself or with friends. But it's still a very intimate experience between you and your palate.
Yeah, I mean, when I first reached out to you, I think I had said that after tasting the product, so at Tematica, we're all thematically driven, right? And when we have a bunch of different themes, but Elixir kind of sits to me at the intersection of guilty pleasure and affordable luxury because it's not ridiculously priced, but it's one of those things that you may not have.
Product.
It's a premium product, right? Maybe not quite super premium, but yeah, premium product.
Well,
And
it's not Folgers.
No, far from it. Far from it. And you would have. I mean, this is something that, like, if people were coming over, you would serve to them, right? You might have it, maybe not every day, or of those 3 cups that I have every day, I can't imagine having 3 bottles of Elixir.
No,
right?
And you don't need it.
It would spoil. It would spoil it for me.
Right. And that's where we're positioning it. For us, when we look at our growth plan over our 10-year map, we've decided that we want to help people get on board with a luxury coffee experience that they can afford to buy for themselves and they can afford to buy for their friends on a less than regular basis.
So that's a great setup because, in my opinion, at one point, Starbucks was an affordable luxury. Right? That $3 or $4 or $5, whatever it is now, that you can get for whatever mochaccino, frappuccino, whatever chino you want to get. But over time, as they're in the grocery stores, both freestanding stores as well as bagged coffee and cold drinks, and you can get their cold brew in the freezer, not in the refrigerator section. So they've expanded their footprint dramatically. And to me, when you can get something all the time, right, it's very easy. It tends to lose its luster.
It's almost completely commoditized now. I mean, Starbucks is almost like a verb. It's a phrase. It's like, you Google it, Starbucks, and Starbucks is sort of any coffee shop.
Right. Yep. Although to be fair to them, they are, we'll see how this plays out, because I think Howard Schultz was behind this. And as we're taping this, he's just announced that he's stepping down as chairman, likely to make some political run. But he was kind of spearheading the move for their new high-end Starbucks roastery business to try to bring it back into that premium.
Yeah, can I give you guys some background on what's going on with all of that?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Wait, awesome. You mean perspective from inside the industry? Sure.
No, hashtag.
You always turn that down.
So just a bit of the history and the way that that we in the industry look at the role of Starbucks.
Yeah,
and
please.
We speak in waves. So there was the first wave, which is the Folgers and the Nescafe and that kind of make coffee with pouring water over crystals kind of thing and stir it and it turns into a drink you should drink every morning. We call that first wave. Second wave is when Starbucks came along and started introducing the espresso machine as something that was a little fancier, and the idea of drinking coffee in coffee shops. And this was what we refer to in the industry as the second wave. And we owe a lot to Starbucks for driving that. But then came the third wave, which is something that we call specialty coffee. So specialty coffee it has a couple of meanings. It's a certain grade of coffee. So when there's a score that happens 0 to 100 for when they grade green coffee. And anything that hits 85 or above is considered specialty grade. But the idea of specialty coffee and third wave coffee, they're the same kind of thing. People interchange that terminology. And it's really about experience. It's about the idea of going into a cafe or a coffee shop and experiencing a bunch of different brew methods of coffees that have been roasted to maximize user experience. They're not roasted just on it's not really a mechanized kind of thing. So Starbucks actually buy specialty grade coffee. So they buy 85 and above. I know.
Wow.
It's quite
surprised. I'm surprised.
Well, I agree with you, Lenore, because I have to be honest with you. Like, the vast majority of their brewed coffees, like if you go in and get a drip,
right?
Not for me. Not for me.
So on that, the reason that that we don't class them as third wave is because the roast profiles that they use are more mechanized. So they're going for an old school kind of flavor profile. So they're going for the darker roasts. Even their light roasts that they would call them are still far too dark, and they have an astronomical volume to roast of coffee. So they're not able to pay the attention that a specialty roaster or a third wave roaster would pay.
So it's kind of like if I can.
Michelob.
Well, I was going to say it's like craft beer versus Budweiser.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's exactly the same thing, which is why we're seeing an increase in the specialty coffee scene and the third wave scene. So it's the fastest growing part of the coffee industry, and which is why Starbucks Reserve has come along. So Starbucks Reserve is, if anyone's been to Seattle, they will have seen their Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory equivalent. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful cafe, and everybody in the specialty coffee industry says the same thing. Well, everyone I've spoken to anyway. Yeah. You can't walk into that store and see what they're doing and talk smack about it, because it's just stunning what they've done. Their roast profiles are trying to hit more along the lines of what craft coffee is, or specialty coffee, and it's not quite there, but they're trying, because they're realizing that the trend is swinging in a different way. You can't be charging people the $5 and $6 that they're charging for flat whites and for lattes, when the majority of the cup is milk, and the roast profiles are the same as what they were in your second wave cafes. So they are swinging in that direction, but they're really still not coming close to that.
It's funny you say that, because if we look at, as a publicly traded company and as a retail / food company, Starbucks will give out its same store sales numbers when it reports its earnings. And if you look at them over the last couple of quarters, those numbers have been essentially flat, with the only real flat to up slightly. And when you cleaved the numbers behind that, its volume is down, pricing is up.
Yep.
So I think, and I talked about this not too long ago, to me, they have benefited from the rollout, like you said, of the second wave of coffee. They've added food, they've driven ticket. They are at a crux where they need to once again reinvent themselves, and it's going to be very interesting to see how they do that. If they go down this path, like you're saying, of I assume we're going to either, is there third wave? Is there a fourth wave?
Well, it'll be interesting to see how the industry terms that, because no one's really using the words fourth wave at this point. But as Starbucks comes in and does what they do, it forces, and I'm encouraging them to do it. I'm encouraging our industry to stop pushing back against what Starbucks is doing and see it as an opportunity for us to continue to evolve. You've always got to have that kind of that dance happening between the bigger companies adopting the great things that the little people are doing and innovating, so that the little people can continue to force themselves to evolve and grow their business models.
I totally agree. The only thing I will say to that is, if we look at like the smartphone market, right, where Apple has done a very good job of letting certain app developers come up with certain things, and then they will come in and roll out their own and decimate those innovators. So I hear what you're saying, but I also get a little nervous about that.
But we can't stop it.
No,
we're never going to be able to stop it. So I'm a fan of, if you can't beat it, continue to try to find a way to beat it, because that's the biggest gift to an entrepreneur, is somebody coming and challenging what you're doing or mimicking what you're doing, so that you have to find another way to try and get up.
So is this if the coffee business by volume is slowing, just using Starbucks as a proxy? Okay. Maybe it's not. Maybe people are going elsewhere, and Starbucks is losing share.
Wave. Right. Second wave.
Yes.
Yep.
So how is the specialty coffee, these smaller niche coffees, again, like craft brew, is this the way the coffee market gets its groove back, if you want to think of it that way?
Absolutely. So this is where Uber and Lyft come into the story. I know that sounds quite strange, but we're experiencing an incredible moment in the history of our industry. And I've been in the industry for 15 years in just the specialty coffee industry. I never was a part of the commodity side of the coffee industry. But what's happened now, especially here in America, is that with the introduction of Lyft and Uber, we found a mass exodus out of our workforce of people who just did coffee because it was the only job that they could get.
Oh.
And we've I mean, it was the placeholder job, right?
Right.
I hadn't thought about that, to be honest with you.
No.
And so people have left coffee shops to go and drive Lyft and Uber, and we've been left with a workforce that are truly passionate about what they do. And this is where my other business, Map It Forward, has come in and was created out of necessity, because what we're left with is a group of passionate people who want to work in specialty coffee because it's really on the incline that people want to go to specialty coffee shops and build connections, because that's where they happen these days. People are sick of their apps and they're sick of these things. So they want to go and find people that they connect with, and they want to go and sit somewhere where they can work that isn't their own home. So specialty coffee shops are becoming that. Our workforce is in an interesting position right now because they want to be there. They want to be a part of this stirring culture that's starting to happen. But they know in 5 years they're going to want to have babies, or they're going to want to travel, or they're going to want to buy houses and things like that. Minimum wage is not going to cut it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so what Map It Forward is about is we have a goal of having baristas being paid $20 an hour from here to the end of 2022. And we have a plan, and we are looking to professionalize the industry so that it's a win-win-win for everybody. It's a win for the owner, it's a win for the barista, and it's a win for the customer.
Okay.
That I would not have thought of how, because the way that connected society has evolved into creating this completely new industry with Lyft and Uber, having that have an impact, because it's always interesting to me the pieces, how the pieces of the puzzle come together. And I was thinking along those lines that part of, I think, what's driving this interest in more experiential products, right? Because like a Starbucks, I would say it was the first step into kind of a more experiential product, because going and having breakfast at IHOP and getting a cup of coffee.
IHOB.
IHOP. A joke about that.
Oh, that's
so Arabs. I'm from Syria. Well, I'm born in Australia, but my background is Syria, and we don't have the letter P in Arabic.
Oh,
so Arabs have been calling it IHOB.
IHOB forever.
Forever.
What's the name change?
No one understands. In the Arab community, no one understands the change.
Oh, good. Don't get the joke.
Like what? It's always been IHOB. What's the problem?
It's always been IHOB.
It's like, get with it, IHOP. We've been calling it IHOP.
Oh my God. But you were saying, Lenore, you don't,
that's not really getting your cup of Joe.
Yeah.
The cup of Joe was not an experience, right? Or even, back when you used to just get a cup of coffee, like even a to-go cup of coffee, like with your donuts or something, that was not an experience.
With that little blue cup with the little Greek symbols around or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. That was not really experience. And I think that first wave with Starbucks was the first kind of where we're moving towards the experiential. But that's the whole thing with the millennial generation is experiences over products. And that, with the Lyft and Uber being more, they don't want to own the product, the car. They just want transportation, because they're more focused on the experiences in life. And that this is part of that wave away from, because I think the baby boomers and the X Gen, that was more about owning stuff.
Yep.
And these guys are more experiential rather than owning something, actually more living light, not really wanting those assets, wanting a more experiential, rich life. And that this sort of fits into that. So along with that, because I would think being a small startup business these days it's wonderful, the best of times, in that it's so easy to get up and running in a lot of ways because of the way technology works, and you can work with people anywhere in the world. And there's so much already kind of in place for you, and infrastructure that makes it easier to get going. But you're competing against so many, and it's so easy. It's so easy for people to try things, to switch. How are you reaching that consumer? Like, because I went on the site, I bought some, I just got my email this morning. I ordered some more because the first round Chris sent me. So this is my second round, and I got my little email this morning saying a shipment is out for delivery.
You'll get it today.
Very cool little symbol on it. How are you reaching that target consumer and developing that relationship with them? Because it is, this is the day where you're so accustomed to, I can get what I want the second I want it, delivered immediately. And it's this kind of instant gratification, whereas this entire experience is not about instant gratification.
Right. And that ties back to what I was saying before. Like, I was out and I had to wait, which is great.
Yeah.
Great, because I look forward to getting it, and I understand that. But I think that it's a
different dynamic, because you're used to like, oh, I like it, next day delivery, boom.
Yep.
And it's on, and you're also used to just basically anything you think of that you want. It's like, well, is it on Amazon? Can I get same day delivery? Right. It's that homogenization of experience, and this is a very different thing. How did you decide to do that? And because I would think that it's wonderful because it's a different experience, but it's also more challenging because it's a lot easier to just put your stuff on Amazon and they take care of it for you.
You're absolutely right. And look, the entrepreneurial experience is difficult more than it is enjoyable until you know how to look for the currencies that are paying you back. So, in our business, we deal in life currencies. So we've defined a bunch of currencies that we grow, and our 7 currencies are peace of mind, flow, growth, purpose, freedom, connectedness, and clarity. And we have KPIs that measure those currencies every month. So for us, knowing that our growth model is very different to the standard business growth model, we're going for the slow build. The eventual payoff in what we're trying to build is absolutely worth it, because we are the first to market. And if we were to follow the typical growth curve of what we could have done with this, which was launch this product, engage an incredible amount of media because they all wanted to speak to us, get an enormous amount of sales to begin with, and then deal with business as usual. And so the growth curve would have had an enormous hump in the beginning and then crash down, and then we'd have to build again.
Correct.
I decided to cut the hump. So we would not speak to any press. We would not give this product to a whole bunch of people. Rebuilding after the crash of the initial hump was a trauma I didn't want to experience. You have to go through the process of hiring enough people to deal with the volume that's coming in, and then you have to go through the process of firing those people once the crash happens. And I don't want to do that. I have a real respect for the workforce that a business owner decides to invite into their journey, and I didn't want to in any way be disrespectful of that. I also had a respect for the fact that we have the honor of being the first to market. And in an industry that is as ancient as the coffee industry, this is something that I want to be on the spec. And it's a tiny spec, but I want it to become a legendary part of that journey. This is the first innovative coffee product in about 30 years.
So that's a fantastic point. And how did you know the time was now for Elixir? In other words, how did you know that the consumer was ready for this product? Because it's ahead of its time.
So if we're talking that we're currently in 3rd wave, this would be about 6th or 7th wave. You're right. It is ahead of its time. And going to Lenore's point, we have to be patient. We have to find who drinks Elixir, and we have to teach the market how to drink it. So people don't understand it. We don't understand it. We've been drinking it for 3 years now. It's been on the market, and I still can't tell you a description for what this tastes like. It's like somebody walked up to you, put a cup in front of you, and said, "Taste this. I'm going to call it wine."
Yeah.
But it's a little more complicated than that, because you don't just have one elixir. You have, I think, almost.
We have a rainbow.
Right, but it's how many products?
We only do one product, which is
Okay.
Elixir, and we have it in different brew hours, so you can taste different hours that it's brewed. And the other, adding to that, sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, I'm glad you corrected me, because from time to time we talk about things and we get our terms kind of mixed up, and then the conversation spirals a little bit. So I'm glad I'm glad you kind of corrected me on that. So it's
No problem.
Just to be clear, it's one product.
Yep.
Different
with
time.
multiple brew times.
Right. And so the number on the front of the bottle is the brew time. So how long it's been brewed for.
So if I'm looking at 14, that's 14 hours.
It's been brewed for 14 hours. And now the reason that that we will just not ship it out automatically is because we make to order. When you receive Elixir from us, know that the Elixir has been made for you. So Lenore, when you placed an order, when we made that Elixir, we knew that that was going to Lenore. That bottle, we knew that specific bottle was going to Lenore.
That's fantastic.
And we made it with Fleetwood Mac.
That's what it was listening to.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
How do you know? How do you know that?
How do I know that?
Yeah, we're sitting here taping a podcast, and you know that. How do you know that?
Well, because I'm involved in every aspect of this business. I'm the ship steerer, so there's nothing that I don't get involved in. I'm involved in production. I'm involved in the ordering. I'm involved in all of it.
Huh.
I choose the roasters. I meet with the roasters.
Wow.
I have
so
the
cool.
honor of being the person who brought this product to the world. I'm the luckiest woman alive.
Wow, that is so. And you were saying earlier that part of the process, because I do really like that this is not to be a process that's recreated, that we want to have the mystique around it. But you were saying something interesting, that it involves sonic waves.
Uh-huh.
So you were just playing around with brewing, just your experience. Like, how did you come up with this? Not asking what it is, but how did you come up with something so different in, like you said, something so different in an industry that is so ancient?
So go on, Chris.
I was going to say, just to bring us back to our conversation earlier, I'm speculating that you were developing one thing and some other benefit was had. Right.
And it was, again, one of those fantastic entrepreneurial stories where an accident happened and it led to something that wasn't anticipated to happen. So I was the head barista at a high-end bakery in Sydney, and we wanted to expand the coffee program. This was about 5 years ago now, actually 4 years ago now, and drip coffee wasn't a thing and it's still not a thing in Australia. It's only just being introduced now. Espresso is how we do coffee in Australia. And we didn't have enough room on the bench in the bakery to add drip coffee. So I asked the head baker if I could come up with a dessert that had a single origin coffee in it so that we could start to expand the coffee program that way. Mm-hmm. He said yes, but he said it had to be something exceptional. So no brownies with espresso in it or anything as crass as that. It had to be something that would wow the customers. So my idea was to create a ginger and cardamom cake with vanilla bean buttercream on the center and on top. And then on top of that, there was going to be a pear that was poached in coffee.
We need to hang out with her, Chris.
we do, but I fear for my waistline.
I'm willing to take the risk.
So the exceptional part of that was, what I wanted was the flavor profiles that you read on the bags of coffee. Oh, it's got peaches and it's got cinnamon and
cherries or this or that. Yeah.
Right. All of that. I wanted those flavor profiles to be amplified so much in the coffee, in the poaching fluid, that it was present in the pear without us having to add anything to the poaching fluid. And at the time, my background is genetics. I'm a scientist by trade. That's what I went to school for. And I love science. And so I was exploring at the time a science called cymatics. Cymatics is the science of the physical expression of sound. And so I was exploring cymatics, and I was exploring sacred geometry. And so shapes and numbers and ratios and things like that. And I was wondering, well, if cymatics can amplify the physical way that sound is expressed, why can't it amplify flavor? And so I tried an idea
and it worked.
I tasted the poaching fluid and knew immediately this was going to be the first truly innovative thing in coffee, and I never poached a pear.
Yeah,
Never.
No,
you didn't get that far, did you?
Don't ruin it.
I put on I was in my pajamas. I put on my shoes. I went to the cafe that I would, on my day off, I went down there and I gave it to one of my friends who was the head barista there, and he tasted it and he said, "What the fuck is it?" Sorry.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And I said, I can't tell you, but what do you think of it? And he said, I don't understand it. What is it? I said, that's coffee. And he went, that's not coffee. It tastes like whiskey or cognac or something like that. Right. I said, I promise you it's not. It's coffee. And he called over a sommelier who happened to be at the cafe at the same time. And he said, Jimmy, come here, taste this. And he tasted it and he said, what is this? I said, I can't tell you. He said, can I have 2 liters of this, which is like 64 ounces? I said, why? What do you want with it? He said, I need to make a cocktail out of this.
There you go. There you go.
And that's how it started.
And so where are you today? I mean, how many coffee shops are you're in? Some coffee shops, right?
We're in about 20 coffee shops around America.
And how do you select them?
The very first thing that I want to know is everything comes back to our life currencies. So as the ship steerer, it's my job to make sure that doing business with these people is going to be filled with peace of mind for everyone involved. Mm-hmm. And so the first thing that I'm looking for is, are these good people? And the reason I say that is because I know the product speaks for itself. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If these people are good people, they run a great business. All they have to do is get the product into people's hands, and then the product does its own magic. I've had the absolute honor of being in a cafe, watching somebody try Elixir for the first time at a table next to me. Those moments are tear-inducing, I've got to tell you. For anyone out there who's wondering if they should actually make a go of putting their own product to market and seeing what happens, those moments you cannot put a price on. Those are the moments that feed you in ways that no food or money ever could. To watch somebody drink Elixir and then talk about it and say, man, I don't understand this, but I can't stop drinking it. Yeah. I can't tell you what that feels like. There are no words in the human language that can describe what it feels like to watch people consume your product. For me, I just feel so honored that people are choosing to put what I've created into their body. But then as an entrepreneur, to have experienced that whole journey of how hard this was, to then see it on tables in cafes.
That's great.
These are the things that as an entrepreneur, that this is the payday. That's the payday. The moment when somebody is talking with their friends at a table next to you, drinking this, saying, man, I wonder how the person that made this came up with it.
Yeah. How did this happen? Because it's so true. I've had 3 now. And I ordered, like I said, ordered a bunch more. I still don't understand it. And every time I pick up the glass, it's like, this is, I mean, how often in your life do you ever truly experience something really, like a food, right, or a beverage that's unique, really, really something different, right? It's always a variation. And this is, I there's coffee, there's tea. For me, there's kind of cognac, and there's a little bit of the experience of a great wine. Because when I bring the glass up, I first get the smell of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a really nice smell. Whereas coffee can be, but not necessarily. And coffee's coffee, right? So when you have it, you don't really have. I mean, how often have you ever picked up a cup of coffee and gone, right? That's a new smell, right? You just go, oh, coffee, thank God, I gotta wake up.
Yeah.
But this isn't like that. It's not that kind of thing. It's more when you have having an evening of great wine and food, and that next bottle comes out and you pour it and you go, oh, what's that? That's something different. Like that's an interesting one. You smell it, take a sip, kind of savor it. That's sort of the experience with this. It's very much a savor kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I don't remember the last time I've ever encountered had a great wine, but it's a great wine, or it's a great cocktail that's just an interesting mix.
Yeah,
but it's derivations.
There's nothing in this category till now.
No. Like you said, it's a funny thing. I think from a marketing challenge, it is really difficult because
it is.
How the hell do you? Because what is it? Something new. It's something totally different,
and it's the biggest challenge we have. Because coupled with another challenge, the barista mindset is, I've created this beverage with my hands. I'm a coffee god. Drink this and pay homage to me. That's how the new wave baristas are.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Because this is my.
Yeah, I could tell you this. Those people are not working at Starbucks.
They're not.
No.
At all. They are working at the craft or the specialty coffee places a lot of the time. But having said that, there are a ton of humble baristas out there. The issue that we're experiencing is that baristas haven't had a hand in making this.
Yeah.
And so for them to serve this without any investment of their own hands in this, it's a difficult sell for them.
Yeah.
Because when somebody says to them, what's Elixir? I don't know how it's made, but I know that it tastes really great and I think you should try it. There's a personal barrier for them in that they're not invested in this going out there because they didn't have a hand in creating it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so go ahead, Chris.
Well, I was just no. I have a couple of questions that I want to hit, but I want you to finish that thought first. So I apologize.
So no, that's fine. So the challenge for us is, how do we tell people what they're drinking? Mm-hmm. How do we tell them what to expect when their brain has never experienced anything like this before? Which is why we say, looks like whiskey, it feels like tea, it's made from coffee, and it's unlike anything you've ever tasted before. Because while that statement doesn't make sense before you try it,
it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Once you've had it, you're like, oh my God, they're completely right.
and that came from a dream. In the dream, I was talking to myself, and I was using a few more profanities than I'm going to use now. I was saying, well, how are you actually going to tell people what this is? How are you going to describe it? And I was talking to myself in the dream, and I said, well, how would you describe it? How do you tell people? And it immediately came out, it looks like whiskey, it feels like tea, it's made from coffee, and it's unlike anything you've ever had before. And then I said to myself in the dream, you need to wake up and write that down.
Well, I could tell you what I came across it in a coffee shop in San Antonio. Shout out to Merit. Merit are awesome. Yeah, well, I was down there for visiting one of our business partners, and I had a wedding I had to go to. So I was walking through there, and I was just going to get a regular cup of coffee, and I was just like, what's this? And that tagline is what caught me. Great. Thank you, higher dream self. So talk to me a little about a couple things, because, I mean, we obviously, like/love the product. We'll want to get our hands on it. And it sounds like you're vetting more shops on a very careful basis, right? Like you said before, you want to control the experience. But I also know that, the coffee market is global, and we're seeing a lot of other larger established companies kind of pivot not so much in the US, but really towards Asia, China for their future growth. So, I mean, A, are you seeing that in general across the industry? And then B, how does that factor into your thinking about your multi-year plan for Elixir?
It's a great question. What we're seeing happen now is companies like Nestle are buying up the companies that have spent the last 10 years turning themselves into specialty coffee shops and, you know, becoming multi-million-dollar establishments. And the bigger companies like Nestle are buying those companies up so that they can have a foot into the specialty coffee market. There are also companies, those companies that have been bought up are now expanding into other countries because they have been purchased by companies like Nestle.
Right.
So Nestle is monopolizing on the brands so that they can expand using their own distribution network and their own manufacturing. It's so much cheaper for them to just plug into their own current networks and then expand those brands. And that's what we're seeing happen in China. We're seeing that happen in Japan. We're seeing that happen in a lot of markets across the world, even here in the US. Where Elixir plays in that is that we've realized that our growth is going to be quite flat in the beginning. Our focus for growth is brand equity and brand integrity. We have to establish the roots of what this product is going to be and solidify that before we can focus on financial growth and revenue. So we can let people know that we've stuck it out. We've been here. We're looking at 5 years before we really go after some enormous financial growth. And we're excited about that when it hits, but we're still a year and a half away from that. So right now we're learning how to do all of that. And we'll practice a few things and try a few things and bring on board people that can help us with that. But right now we're looking at establishing ourselves as the absolute premium coffee experience in the world.
So it's pretty fascinating. As we're taping this, there's a story running on CNBC that JP Morgan's CEO Jamie Dimon and Warren Buffett are talking about doing away with quarterly earnings guidance and all this other stuff because they feel, and I agree, and Lenore, I suspect you'll agree with this, is that businesses will manage in too short of a term without really developing and investing in the business and growing it properly. And that is what you're doing. At least that's what it sounds like.
Well, that's absolutely what we're doing. And look, I've had a lot of pushback from a lot of people. I was quite the hated person in the coffee industry because of the cognitive dissonance that I have disrupted or created because of the disruption that I have caused. It took me a minute to realize that that's a good thing. And especially because when people say to me, what you need to be doing is focusing on growth, like you've got to get as much market share as you can. And I'm like, but listen, I have 0 competitors.
Yeah.
That's actually a great question, though. So, you know, when people look at different businesses and they try to figure out, you know, what's your competitive advantage, how long can you sustain that? Is there anybody who's nipping at your heels, who's trying to reverse engineer this, and they're like, oh?
So listen, many a person has come to me and said, I know how Elixir's done. I'm going to release it. And I said, well, great, go ahead. If you think the only thing that makes a business is the product, go for it. And by the way, until I say that, yes, that's how Elixir's made, it's not Elixir.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Okay.
So everyone who wants to try and do this can go and do it. We're the first, and we are playing our own
game
journey.
Yeah.
It's not, and the thing is, I wish I was more competitive, but I am not competitive at all. I know what I want to get out of this. I want to build a business that can one, be known as the thing that turned the coffee industry into a moment of experience. rather than this thing that people just do mechanically every day. They drink as many cups of coffee that they do, and that's it. I want you. Go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say, I think that you have successfully created a standout product with an air of mystique around it, and it's one that I think we at Tematica will be drinking on a carefully measured basis.
Yes.
And it's I think over time, Lee, you know, we'd like to have people back on the podcast to kind of see what's going on and see how they're developing and nurturing. Just I want you to promise that you'll be back before 18 months happen.
Yes. Look, I've had such a blast talking to you guys that I absolutely will. We, you know, it's been interesting because through the process of getting to this point where we're rolling now, you know, we're testing the waters. We're getting ready to hit into our, you know, in a year and a half, we'll be hitting our next growth spurt where we'll be expanding into being more revenue driven than we currently are. We will never lose the focus that we have on branding and experience and all those kind of things. But we have to take the first 5 years to learn how to do that, especially while we don't have anyone competing with us. This is the golden time. And in doing that, and talking to you guys and seeing what you guys, you know, before we went ahead with this podcast, and you guys actually gave me a great idea that ended up evolving into something that we are going to go ahead with. And it's kind of strange, and I love when these things happen. I'm a big believer that everything happens for you, not to you.
All right, Lee, just tell us what it is.
So we are going to be releasing a corporate subscription for Elixir. And it's actually not just going to be Elixir, it's going to be the whole corporate coffee experience subscription. So for every month, we are going to send out a 24 pack of Elixir plus however many bags of roasted coffee beans you need for the office.
Now, are these going to be specially roasted coffee beans?
They are going to be the coffee that's been roasted for Elixir. So our roasters specially roast for us to certain roast profiles because Elixir reveals everything about the roast profile.
You know, I got to just tell you, I think this is a wonderful idea, but I think that you really need to beta test it with some key people first.
You know, iron out the kinks.
Yeah, I mean, you want to make sure. You want to make sure you really know. I know you think you know what you're doing, but you really want to make sure.
We're all about helping you.
Yeah, help me. Help me help you. That's right. That's right.
Well, that is fantastic. Where can people find out information about this?
They can go to our website, elixirspecialtycoffee.com. So that's ELIXIR specialtycoffee.com.
And we'll have a link to that also. If you go on iTunes, wherever it is that you're listening to this podcast, we'll have links that you can find for all that.
Right. But Lee, you're also on Instagram, which is the way we got chatting originally.
Right.
And then
yeah.
And then you're on Twitter as well, right?
No, we're not on Twitter. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and that's the only two that we have.
No Twitter?
Well, we have Map It Forward for Twitter. I'm personally on Twitter. Okay. And people contact me, Lee Safar, on Twitter and have Elixir conversations with me.
Head steerer of elixirspecialtycoffee.com.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to be a little crass here. You know, that Elixir is wonderful going in, but at some point it's got to come out.
Oh, and we've been drinking a lot of it on today's podcast.
Yes. So with that, Lee, I'm just going to say it's a wonderful product. Thank you so much for coming on and telling us about it. Guys. We look forward to seeing you and the company continue to blossom and do wonderful things.
Thank you so much for your support, and thanks for having me on. It's been an absolute blast.
Thanks, Lee.
Thank you, guys.